Hi, everyone. All right, this is lesson 12, day 3, modeled and guided instruction. Um, so again, this entire lesson is all about using the things that we've already learned about proportional relationships in situations that we'll encounter in the real world. So we've already worked on figuring out discount prices. We've worked on things like determining interest, that type of thing. We didn't really talk about things like sales tax and tips yet, but we will be doing that. It's very similar to interest, right? But for today, we're actually going to do kind of like a backwards situation. So I'll tell you, hey, here's what I paid for this. It was on sale for 30% off. And you're going to figure out the original price, right? Now that can become kind of important in business. Sometimes people have basically they've paid for things that they know have been marked up. So there's a markup, but they want to know, all right, well, what percent was the markup? Especially people in business need to figure this out. So we're going to talk about how we do that today. 3 mathematical practices that we'll focus on today: reasoning abstractly and quantitatively. All right, so abstractly is really kind of the equation work that we do. Quantitatively is looking at things like the bar graphs that we look at, and really kind of figuring it out in a more concrete manner. Attend to precision. That's also something that could go on every day, just like persevering in problem solving, which I did not include today. And look for and make use of structure. All right, seeing how numbers relate. And we're going to actually look at that in terms of the way multiplication and division are related. And we're going to use that structure to help us figure out some things that we don't know. All right, let's move on to the warm up. Oh, right, directions first. Totally forgot about that. Remember, you're going to be expected to hand your work in, all right, and here are the instructions for that. And if you need to pause and read through this, go ahead. But it's been the same. Paper, pencil, you can use a Google Doc if you want. All right, so today's warm up might look a little bit more like language arts, and I'm going to move my picture up so you can see these, but really the instruction is to match the term with its definition. So on your paper, just write 1 through 5, and all you really need to do is write the correct letter next to the number. All right, so pause the video, give this a shot, and then when you're ready, we'll come back and you can see if you got the answers correct. All right, so here we are. All right, and I have changed the table around just a little bit so that the correct definition is next to the correct word. All right, so markup, right? Markup is a percent added to the cost of an item. All right, so if you ever go into business for yourself, when you buy something, you want to sell it at a higher price. Most people mark things up based on a percentage. They might mark them up 20, 25%. But anytime you're buying something, believe you me, the person who's selling it to you has probably in some way marked it up a little bit. Simple interest is what we figured out in the last lesson, right? Like Joshua figuring out 5% of the 300. Tax. All right, here in the state of Maine, we pay a 5.5% sales tax on most things. Other things cost higher, like if you have prepared goods, those are a higher tax. If we have luxury items, those are a higher tax. Well, here's what happens. Almost everything you buy, not groceries though. Some groceries, like groceries that you don't really need for nutrition, like chips get taxed, but groceries that you need for sustaining your life don't get taxed. What's really interesting, if you want to look this up, is state of Maine sales tax to see what gets taxed at what percent. But anyway, for most goods, we pay 5.5% sales tax. That means we pay 5.5% on everything we buy, and then the person selling it to us, the store or whatever, that money is money that they pay to the government. So some of it goes to the state of Maine. There are other things that go to the federal government, but sales tax goes to the state. All right, and then they use that money to pay for things like taking care of roads. Some of it goes back into the schools. Some of it goes for emergency measures like we're having right now, that type of thing. Gratuity is a percent that gets added onto a service. Like if you tip a waiter or waitress at a restaurant, that's a gratuity. And then commission, we're going to be talking about in a future slide, but in a future video, but commission is if you work for somebody and you get paid commission, you get paid a certain percentage of what you sell. The great thing about that for employers is their employees will sell more, because if you sell more, you get paid more. All right, so there are the terms. All right, let's move on to the lesson. All right, so as always, I want you to think about the 3 questions at the top, and I'm going to want you to answer them on paper. All right, so think about how you might answer that as I'm reading out loud. So here's the problem. Nia told Patrick that her new backpack only cost $14 because she used a 30% off coupon when she bought it. Patrick wants to buy a similar backpack. How much will it cost if he does not have the 30% off coupon? All right, so this is a little tricky. We already know the sale price. We know the percent off. What we don't know this time is the original price. All right, so here's what I'd like you to do. Answer the 3 questions and then do your best to solve the problem. And then, of course, pause the video while you're doing that. And when you're finished, get the video going again. All right, so here we are. I'm going to move my picture down. I'll be moving it around a little bit. But I'd like to actually have us start by looking at what the Ready Text calls a tape diagram. I think the tape diagram is very similar to a bar graph, except it's just got 1 bar. But here's what Patrick did, or here's the way we could look at it. All right, so he's like, well, I know the regular price is what I'm trying to figure out, all right? And since it's kind of an easy percent, 70 and 30 to split by tens, he did that. He split it by tens. Then he was thinking to himself, well, Nia paid $14. That had to be 70%. Now remember, in a previous lesson, we talked about this. If it's 30% off, then you're paying 70% of. All right, so Patrick's like, well, I know that Nia paid 70% of the cost, and that's $14. So right here, he knows the 30% would be the discount. All right, so I did this. I figured this. All right, I counted the boxes here. There's 7. Oh, that makes sense, right? Because you're splitting it up. So 14 divided by 7 is $2. So each of these boxes is worth $2. Well, then each of these must also be $2. So I thought about that. Well, that's $6 right here. So the discount must have been 6. So then you can do 14 plus 6. Or you can just do this. You've got 10 boxes total. Each box is worth $2. So the original cost must have been $20. Either way, you work that out, either 14 plus 6 or just do 2 times 10. All right, let's take a look at the equations, though. Again, I love these tape diagrams and things, such a good visual model, but I also want you to take a look at the equation. All right, one thing I want you to think about here is how multiplication and division are related. So see this light bulb guy here? Think about this for a second. If 5 times 3 is 15, that means 15 divided by 5 is 3. And I don't know if you remember doing related facts when you were in elementary school, but we're going to use this now in a more sophisticated way. All right, so just remember, if 5 times 3 is 15, if I divide this answer by either one, 5 or the 3, I'll get the other. All right, so 15 divided by 5 would be 3, but 15 divided by 3 would also be 5. All right, so remember that, and I'm going to refer to it again. All right, so here's what we can do. So I'm saying we're going to add a little algebra into this. In algebra, when we don't know a value, we can use a variable to help us figure it out. In this case, let's use the letter R. So you can see I've got it right here in the equation as our variable for the regular price. They did that up here as well in the tape diagram. All right, R stands for regular price. All right, so then what we'll do is, since the item is 30% off, we know we're paying 70% of the regular price. So here's what I know then. 0.7 times R is equal to 14, or 70% of R, the regular price, is 14. I don't know what the regular price is, but I know when I take 70% of it, it's 14. All right, so hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to use what we've got here to figure this out. if I know 0.7 times r is 14, then using this same relationship here, or pattern, I know that 14 divided by the 0.7 should tell me what the r is. So remember I said in this unit you could use your calculator, so go ahead and try that. You could do this out by hand too, I'm pretty sure, okay? But when I do 14 divided by 0.7, I get 20. Oh, so here we go. I got 20 using the equation. All right, so there's a little algebra for you. If that didn't make sense, take a little time to reread this, and you can always back the video up. That's the cool thing about learning via video. All right, here's the next thing I'd like you to do on your paper, and I'd like you just to go ahead and number these as problems 10 through 17, even though that makes no sense on your paper. Use the material we just went through to try to answer these problems here. Do the best you can. So I'd like you to pause the video, answer those, and then when you're ready, come on back. All right, so here are the answers from the teacher's text. All right, and what I'd like you to do is read through the responses here. It's not problems 3 through 9. I have that wrong. That came from a previous show. It should be problems 10 through 17. All right, so go back on problems 10 through 17, and I'd like you to circle anything you did not understand. All right, and we'll take a look at that and see if we need to review some things. All right, last step, hand your work in. All right, again, here are the details for doing so, and I hope you have a great day.